Right, so I think we should be live now. I'll give everybody a couple minutes just to pile in. Thank you all so much for joining us. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Frax and what they're doing, and have been a part of their community actually before I started building out the DeFi innovation community. So for me, this is like a nice way to come full circle. And thank you for your time, Sam. I don't know if you have time to give just a 30-second or so introduction on your background, just for the folks that might not be familiar with you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. So I'm Sam, founder Frax Finance, which is the first fractional algorithmic stablecoin. And then before that, I was a co-founder at Everpedia. Now working full time on Frax. And when I say full time, I literally mean all day, every day. Like right behind me is Jason, who's also literally, we just work every single day nonstop on Frax stuff. So full time would not really describe it, because that's technically only 40 hours a week. When I say full time, I mean like over 100 hours a week, basically.
Yeah, no, it seems like it. I feel like me and you are both on Telegram pretty much all the time. Sam and I both live in Los Angeles, so we're on the same time zone, and I always see him active in the Frax chat as well as in the innovation community. I think probably most people watching this video are familiar with Frax, but in case after the live stream is published and the video just kind of lives on forever, do you mind giving a brief explainer on Frax for those that might not be familiar?
Yeah, so Frax is the first fractional stablecoin. That's where it gets its name. The idea behind it is, before we kind of came out with it, the old stablecoin triangle classification, where it's like there's fiat backed, there's like over collateralized crypto backed, and then there was those 0% backed stuff, Signage shares basis, ESDV1 and stuff. We thought of, well, why is there no fractional? There's nothing in the middle, right? Why is there like 150% or over collateralized and then 0%, right? I was always under the impression that it's kind of crazy that no one's ever thought about the fractional case, right? Maybe it's because in crypto, the word like fractional reserve or something sounds super evil or whatever. But in any case, we thought that, this design space is literally non-existent. We're basically building it out for a while. Frax, from as an idea, was from 2019, but we really got going and released the product in late 2020. And to be honest, like obviously everyone comes at stuff at a different angle, but I like to think that we really changed the game in the stablecoin space, because ever since Frax actually came out, every kind of project in their own flavor and in their own inspired way has kind of pivoted to some kind of Frax flavor, where everyone has hybrid collateral now. Everyone has some kind of reserve ratio thing, right? And so I like to meme that all roads lead to Frax. It's like anyone that comes up with a stablecoin idea, and obviously it's not like a code fork of Frax, but they end up just slowly moving towards the almost exact same premise, right? That we came out with. We came out with the premise of hey, here's a stablecoin protocol. It's not fully collateralized. The collateral does stuff, right? In the case of Faye, maybe it's liquidity or something, or in some other things, it's go somewhere else. But the idea is there's more stablecoins out there than can be one-to-one redeemed, right? And so that's fractional, right? That's a fractional stablecoin. And before Frax came out, no one talked about that, right? I mean, you can look about that. That was not part of the stablecoin design space. So I really think we kind of did I kind of call it the Bitcoin of hybrid stablecoins. I like to think we really did contribute to expanding the design space in stablecoins.
Yeah, gotcha. I think I've seen you touch on this a bit in your tweets, but could you explain why do we need a new stablecoin for DeFi? What is DAI? What's missing in DAI that Frax is bringing?
Yeah, so a lot of people confuse the perspective of capital efficiency, right? Like one of the first things when I tell them about Frax and stuff, people think actually from the beginning that it's about them. They're like, why would I use Frax instead of using DAI? DAI is 150% backed. I'd never use something that's less than, backed for no reason, right? And the point is, yeah, obviously, like all things considered, everything being the same, liquidity, integrations and stuff, you should never use another stablecoin that just has less backing, right? If you think of money as like liability of the issuer, right? Like, so for example, DAI is a liability of Maker, Frax is a liability of the Frax protocol, and their backing, or like the amount that you can get honored for the currency is the backing, then you should never use something, all things being equal, that has less backing, right? Like it is backed less. But what people don't understand is like everything is moving towards capital efficiency from the money creation perspective, not the consumer usage perspective, right? So like if you consider it the other way, why doesn't MakerDAO increase their collateral ratio, right? This is what I always talk about because it's so obvious when people think about it this way, is like if everyone wants more backing, why doesn't MakerDAO increase the cost of creating DAI to like 200% collateralized, like 500%, right? If there was like a DAI stablecoin that was 500% backed, but everything about it was the same like lending rate, liquidity and stuff, everyone would be using that, right? But that doesn't exist. There is no DAI that's 500% backed, right? So the point is that basically everything is going towards a capital efficient perspective, but from the money creation side, right? And the thing that's really important about that is like when you have cheaper money, like the creating money and meeting the demand for that amount of money in the open market, then there's just more liquidity. It's cheaper to borrow. Things flow faster, right? Imagine if DAI was 500% back, there'd be less units of DAI to put into liquidity protocols, right? There'd be less reason to mint it, right? You'd have to put up $1,000 of ETH to mint 500 DAI instead of being able to put up $1,000 of ETH and being able to mint like 850 DAI, right? Which is just slightly over collateralized, right? So everything is better when there's more capital efficiency from the money creation perspective. So the real answer is, it's not that you should want to use Frax like, right now per se, but it's like as time goes on, right? Frax should be able to expand faster, right? And also, the other thing is, I think it's obvious whether Frax expands faster or not. Everyone is moving towards a Frax design. Like I like to link some Maker proposals that basically say to mint DAI directly into Aave and lending markets and stuff, or like now they have protocol controlled value, right, in the peg stability module, which is a one-to-one swap for USDC, right? Everything is just moving towards that model anyway. So it's not even that, why would I use Frax instead of like DAI or something? It's like DAI is becoming like Frax, right? And then Frax is the correct way to think about money. And then it's more like, kind of which community do you want to be a part of? Why not both, right? And so like we're kind of leading the theory of money, right, in the DeFi space.
Gotcha. Yeah. I see some questions in the chat. By the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in there now. I have a few questions prepared, but I will jump over to those. But I did see that Alex had a question. Why choose Frax over Faye? He said they seem very similar to him. Can you help him discern what's the difference between the two of them? Why do you think Frax is the superior design?
Yeah, well, two things. One is, right now the answer is obvious. Like, you can't choose Faye because it's not reliably at the peg, right? But it goes without saying. Let's assume that that works, right? Faye is kind of an implementation of fractional liquidity, right? It's a fractional coin. Other than right now, which is I'm not going to really comment on like since launch, like the lifespan of what happened is they launched, right? They did a huge successful launch of 1 billion something ETH. Everything imploded in like a pretty big mess, unfortunately, right? They shut down the whole protocol. They shut down direct incentives. They shut down whatever the features were for weeks. There was apparently a big bug that they didn't want to get out and fix, right? And then while they shut everything down, the price of ETH went up, right? So their $1 billion worth of ETH was like two billion or something, right? And then recently they just allowed redeeming of Faye at 95 cents for the excess, amount of collateral they had, right? So it's difficult to really comment on Faye because nothing is actually working, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to really say. So
Yeah,
assuming it works, and I think they will. They're a smart team. They have a lot of big backers and everything, right? Assuming it works, I think that it's just basically let's see. Let's wait until it works. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work, but like let's wait.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think that transitions nicely into my next question. So we've had, USDT, USDC, we've had DAI, and now Frax is kind of the newer generation of stablecoins. Why do you think, what's stopping another design from, say, like forking Frax and implementing something a little more innovative? I mean, are you thinking about the future and what else you can build just to make Frax more efficient? And how are you planning for competition that way? Because we've all seen in this bull market in the past few months, there's been a Frax fork on BSC, I think a Frax fork on Ethereum, which is all credit to you guys, but eventually perhaps someone could come up with a better design. Why is it that you guys are going to beat them to that?
Yeah, so two things. One is I think that really shows like we're kind of the Bitcoin of fractional coins when there's so many forks. I've never been a part of another project in my life that's been forked so many times. That's right. So that's kind of cool. The second thing is this is where the AMOs come in, which is like our V2 design spec, because we do really think of Frax as absolutely huge in terms of potential. Like honestly, and I'm not trying to even just show my own project, but as big as something like Ethereum and things like that, because the way that we think about it, is that Frax is kind of the generalized building block for stability mechanisms. So in case people aren't familiar, in V2, we released these things called algorithmic market operation modules. So like we call them AMOs, and the thing about them is they're just the Frax principle generalized, right? So if we go back to the V1 system of Frax, it's a variable collateral ratio, right? If Frax is over $1, right, the collateral ratio goes down slowly, right? And there's less backing, right, as people mint more Frax and arbitrage it in the open market. And then it stops at like a place where it's in equilibrium with the market, right? And then if Frax is at 99 cents, just under the peg, that's used as a signal to say that the market doesn't think that there's enough backing here, right? The reserve ratio or capital ratio of the protocol, right, which we call the collateral ratio, is too low, right? Because people are going to sell their stable coins rather than keep them and use them and stuff. We use that as a signal to increase the collateral ratio, right? This is all just done on chain, right? We thought of, well, this is just like a algorithmic central bank, right? There's a collateral ratio, right, which is the balance sheet of the bank, the ratio of money, right, that it's like printed versus the capital on its balance sheet, right, the ability to buy back its money, right? And this ratio is changing based on what the market actually thinks of the protocol, right? And V1 is the most basic form of that, right? Which is like you mint more money and then you burn the Frax shares, the governance token of the system, right? And then if it's too low, you mint the governance token of the system and you increase the collateral ratio, right? With AMOs, we thought of, well, this can be an arbitrary, strategy with anything, right? Any strategy that increases the money supply, right? Is essentially a decollateralization, right, in V1. And then any strategy that just reverses that, increases the collateral, right, in the system, that's called recollateralization, which is the increasing the CR, right? And so you could just build arbitrary stability mechanisms in this way and tightly integrate with different protocols, right? So we have a Curve AMO, which means you mint Frax and take idle collateral into Curve. That lowers the collateral ratio, right? Because you mint money and then you put idle collateral into Curve, increases the liquidity a lot. But then also, if you want to increase the collateral ratio, you just pull it out. You pull it out and you burn the Frax, right? This idea of like you can literally program any kind of market operation, right, into anything, right, into lending markets, which is the compound, the Maker link that I always like to tweet, right? There's a Maker proposal that basically says instead of forcing people to mint DAI with like over collateralized ETH, why don't we just mint raw DAI into Aave, just like raw DAI, right? That's an AMO, right? It's a strategy, right? It's basically an algorithmic strategy for minting stablecoins in somewhere else, which increases the liability of the issuing protocol, right, Maker. And so we've come up with basically this framework of how to build these building blocks, right? And I think to answer Jason in the comments, that's actually Jason. Travis isn't here, but yeah. We basically build this kind of framework, right? And so the more developers that actually basically see this and propose AMOs and stuff, the more powerful and interesting the protocol gets, right?
Yeah.
In fact, my last point on this is that I think as more people are going to discover that like minting their stable coins like DAI and stuff like is important, what's the next thing they're going to think about? They're going to think about, we should probably formalize how and when we mint. We shouldn't just like randomly just like mint DAI into Aave or into Compound or like into Curve or something, right? We need a formalized way to communicate to people what our market operations are, right? What does that sound like, right? A formalized framework for increasing or decreasing the money supply in an algorithmic way. That's just exactly what we're trying to design with the AMO. So again, like I think we're like 1 or 2 steps ahead, and the market is kind of catching up.
Yeah, I should add, if you have any more questions about the AMOs, I think I have a link to the Frax Telegram below. If not, I will include that later. But I also have a video on my channel going into how the AMO framework works, if that would be helpful for anyone. Sam, so I have seen some questions in the chat. The past 48 hours obviously have been pretty crazy in this space. If you're watching this video after it's recorded after the live date, basically there was a 50% flash crash in ETH and also in DeFi over the last 48 hours. Can you talk about how Frax handled that? What happened to Frax's peg? What happened to FXS? How did it perform overall?
Yeah, so actually what's really funny is, first of all, I'm actually impressed that it went even better than I actually personally thought. But I guess that's really good testament to our design. I was asleep. The worst part of the crash was I had gone to bed late the other night. I was working on Frax stuff. It was like 4 a.m. in LA time. At like 6:30, Teddy, who's my colleague from Everpedia, but he was in Sweden, so to him it wasn't early or anything. He like starts calling me and he's like, yo, like nothing's particularly wrong, like it's not like a hack or any, you know, I got woken up like this, right? But he's like, you should probably check the market, you should probably wake up, right? So like I was like, holy shit, it straight up felt like March 2020 for other people that remember that. And I was like, whoa, so I had gotten like 2 hours of sleep, and then me and Travis and Jason got on a Zoom. We're looking at everything. At first, by the way, it was really, really difficult to even know what the real price of the stable coins were, by the way. So a lot of people are like sharing screenshots of like CoinGecko, right, showing like 90 cents for USDC, like, you know, 85 cents for like DAI or whatever, and stuff like that. Those were not actually real prices a lot of the time. So one thing to really keep in mind is that CoinGecko and a lot of different places use ETH as the base pricing, right? And because it has to be anchored to something, right? So for example, in order to know how much Frax is, right, and how much Ethereum, is compared to each other, right, in dollars, CoinGecko has to compare them on the underlying pairs, right? And when ETH goes down by 50% or something like that in like 30 minutes, as you were saying, it's really difficult to get like accurate comparisons, right? Because even a 10% change in like a stablecoin's price, 90 cents, everyone's like, oh my god, it's done, right? Something got hacked, something's imploding, it's going to zero or something, right? A lot of those prices weren't real, so that's the first. Because what do we do when we see like like Frax is showing like 95 cents, right, on CoinGecko or something? We went to Curve, right? We went to Uniswap. We went to all of these things, and we looked at what price can someone actually get, right? We looked at the FXS price, which also was going down, right? And on the redeem function, like what price could people actually get? And Frax never ever was at all off of the peg during the entire time. So that's actually really surprising.
I'm not sure if you. Yeah, I'm not sorry to cut you off. I'm not sure if you looked into it, but before this, preparing for this, I looked at the chart of Frax on CoinGecko, and I looked at DAI. And I don't know if you looked into DAI, but Frax seemed pretty pegged pretty well to $1, but it looked like DAI was trading at 90 cents. Was that just an error on CoinGecko, or do you have any insight into that?
I'm still trying to look. I think actually the DAI one might be a little more accurate actually than the USDC or Tether one, because DAI, there was a lot of liquidations, right? So the amount that the volatility for demand then sell, demand then sell, demand then sell of DAI was pretty insane, right? So that might be real, but again, like I think that it's hard to know the exact, like DAI might have been 95 cents instead of 90, just because it's really off. Well, the thing I want to just emphasize though is like, we did even better than I thought, right? But and so like that is extremely valuable to the protocol, right? Like now that the fact that we're talking about this here, everyone watching, people on Twitter and stuff, they're like, okay, Frax did extremely well this time. Every other market dump, everything, right? So next time you hold some Frax, right, and you're thinking, should I like swap it for DAI or USDC or something? A lot of people will probably be like, why would I pay the gas or like go out of my way? Yeah. It's never broken the peg and just made people lose money. What are the odds that it's going to do that now? I'll just hold the Frax, right? And that's how you build this thing called the Lindy effect, which if people are familiar, it's the concept of the longer something lives, the higher its like future life expectancy, which is true for stuff like money, obviously like stable coins like Bitcoin, right? Because like the longer Bitcoin's at the top, and it's like the standard for like store of value or gold in crypto or something, the longer everyone's just going to treat it as such, right? And that's why another cryptocurrency is much harder to challenge that Lindy effect. So same thing with Frax. Like every day, here, this is the thing you can't quantify, right? And it only shows in second order effects. Every day that it survives and thrives, less and less people are going to be like, oh, I have Frax in my wallet, I should probably get rid of it for like a different stablecoin. The less that happens over time, the more it just becomes money, right? Like literally. Yeah. So that's like really important.
Great. Yeah, thank you. No, that helps. I know you said you were going to leak some alpha here. I'm going to leave that to the end because my last question, I think, is going to be the one on everyone's mind, is how are you going to increase the value for FXS holders? But before we get into that, I do want to briefly go through kind of like a speed round of questions I've seen come up in your Telegram a lot that I think people are wondering in the community. So the first of those, to jump right into it, is, will you remove USDC as collateral? Do you have plans to? Do you have plans to convert to ETH as the collateral for Frax?
Yeah, so that's the most common question. So the most commonly asked question is, Frax has really good design. It's awesome. It can become the decentralized thing, but it uses fiat coin collateral, right? So like, when is that going to not happen? So it can really capture the whole vision. First of all, the first answer is yeah. We not only have plans, but I just like to highlight every single stablecoin project, like Maker, Faye. Now they're discussing selling some ETH for stablecoins, right? they're all going towards more like USDC and other stablecoin reliance, while we're going down and against the flow of stablecoin reliance. Obviously, yes, 85% of the collateral 85% of the entire protocol, right, which is 100% of the collateral, is USDC, but we're lowering the amount over time, right? Like we have an actual systemic plan to go lower, right? With Maker, for example, and their peg stability module, right? They start off with 0 USDC, right? The over collateralized ETH and stuff, and they were like, okay, we actually can't hold the peg as tight without USDC one-to-one swaps. If you remember, in the past 1 to 2 years, Maker's peg wasn't so tight before Curve and the peg stability module. It would fluctuate between $1.03 and 97 cents and stuff, right? It was loose pegged to $1. So it wasn't as useful as just holding Tether and stuff, right? Then they just started having more USDC, right? Like 30% of Maker is USDC. Literally, like just one-to-one swaps of, and yes, I know 85% of Frax is USDC, right? So 85 is more than 30, but they're going from 0 to 35, right, or 30, and then we're going from 100 down to mid to low 80s, and we have systemic plans to become the least reliant on stablecoins, right? Because again, we have the only framework, at least right now, where we just have arbitrary ability to create programmatic monetary policy, right? With the AMOs, right? And we're able to just build much, much quicker. It's basically like, the thing that I like to say is kind of like Frax is kind of like Ethereum, versus like before Ethereum, there was all of these projects like Mastercoin and Counterparty that would let you color your Bitcoins, right? So if like you wanted to release your token, you'd have to do it on the Bitcoin blockchain. You couldn't actually release any programmatic logic, right? Because the idea of like a Turing complete blockchain didn't even exist before Ethereum, right? I like to think of Frax as kind of like the Ethereum of like stablecoin design space, right? Because every stablecoin project is kind of like one type of AMO, right? It's like, Faye is like, we have some collateral, and we're going to put it in liquidity, right? That's kind of like the Curve AMO. If we just, instead of building the Curve AMO, we did a Uniswap AMO, which is what Faye does, right? That's their whole protocol, right? That's the entire protocol. So we're basically like kind of like the Ethereum of stablecoins. And so I think that we have the best chance of lowering reliance of fiat coins and USDC than anyone else, right? So a lot of people say, like you asked, right? The first question is when 0 USDC, right? But the thing they miss is all of the other protocols are the net reliance on USDC is going up, right? And ours is net down, right? So they forget to look at the trajectory instead of the absolute number.
Yeah, great. Another question I see a lot is, how is the Uniswap v3 migration coming along? And then how much do you think it will cost for current locked LP providers to migrate to V3? Because I've seen a lot of folks that they want to provide liquidity, but they're just concerned that it would be very gas intensive to use the migrate function over to V3 when you enable that.
Yeah, I think the gas stuff for Ethereum is getting worse, and then it gets better for a little bit, and then during the big dump the other day, there was a time where it was like 1,000 GWay, right? Or 2,000. It was some insane number, right? Migrating to V3 is actually extremely complicated. And I think you know this probably at your work at Brink too, right? We're prioritizing moving Frax USDC in the next few weeks. It's a good thing you brought up the gas stuff, because we might we might try to do some kind of like promo where we actually just give people extra FXS for just migrating stuff over.
Gotcha.
I don't know exactly how that works, so don't quote me on it, but I know the gas costs are pretty high, especially like if people have slightly lower principal, it might not even make sense why they would bother to do it, even if they don't earn rewards anymore in V2. If the gas costs like $1,000, right? Like how much how long is it going to take for you to make $1,000 first, and then increase your reward. So we'll try to figure out what to do. We're cognizant of the gas cost. The other stuff though, like the Frax FXS pool or the Frax ETH pair, we want to bring those over, but there's less of a urgency for it because they're all just going to be like on long range orders anyway, which is indeed more efficient, but it's not like an emergency, right? The Frax USDC pool, which you can put on a range order of like half a cent on each side, that is, orders of magnitude more efficient than the current TVL. So we're really, really concentrating on that. And once we get that through, not that Frax even needs any more robustness, but it'll like increase Frax's robustness by like 10x at least,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is probably the biggest question on everyone's mind. Obviously, the market crashed over the past 48 hours, so it's no surprise that the FXS value went down. What are your plans to bring back value to FXS going forward? If there's anything you want to share, I know you tweeted out that you might have some alpha to leak here, but basically, what's on the pipeline? Why should someone buy FXS now? Why should someone lock up their stake, etc.?
Yeah, so definitely. Here's one of the first things though about Frax shares, which is the governance token. It's the asset that's supposed to be volatile, right? And it goes down unfortunately here and goes up a lot other times. First of all, FXS is a very active token in terms of like you can do stuff with it. If you're like just buying FXS and you don't want to do anything, right? Like you want to buy it on Binance and you're like, I'm not going to move this out, but it's a good investment. You probably are not getting as much value out of it as you would holding like something like Bitcoin, which is a pet rock, right? You can't do anything other than lend it on other platforms, right? Within the Frax protocol, you can do a bunch of stuff with FXS. You can lock it up, like you're saying. You can farm with it. You can get all of these yields and stuff. And so the first thing I want to say is like most people that are actively involved are pretty happy that they're earning more Frax shares and they're earning more yield. It's an early protocol. So as we get the tokens out, there's going to be dilution if you don't do anything with it, right? If you literally just buy some Frax shares and then forget about it, the shares need to get distributed, right? The first year or something of the protocol. And so you're basically buying something that is valuable right now because of its early potential to contribute, right? And you're not contributing, right? So like you're actually not getting the most out of it. So first of all, if people are gonna buy Frax shares and stuff, I would highly recommend that they stake it, farm with it, or whatever, in the duration that they're comfortable with, because you'll be earning yield every day, and so the dollar value of it is actually not as important in the short term. Now, with that said, some of the alpha leak stuff, obviously, it's not totally secret that we're doing a really big partnership with Olympus DAO. But one of the things I want to kind of actually say here that's I haven't really fully explained ever before is we have a really long-term outlook for like what Frax is in terms of like being a unit of account potentially in the long term. That's actually not just a stablecoin. So in the near future, I'm going to be releasing kind of like a post and an idea about something called the Frax Price Index, which is basically a long-term view for an on-chain governable indice, right? Like a unit of account that Frax will eventually peg towards, right? When it reaches $1 trillion in market cap, which is, I know that's really far out in like possibility and time duration, but FXS holders will be able to actually vote on this on chain. So that's and I don't want to give too much description on it, but that's something I'm working on that actually will make Frax a leading, candidate in the floating stablecoin space. Not now, right? Until 1 trillion in market cap, right? it will be pegged to $1, the most useful unit, whether people like, dollars or not. It's what 80% of every settlement trade and 90+% of like crypto trades are settled in, right? But we have some really, really big grand vision type of products that we're releasing. The first thing that the reason we really like Olympus DAO and those guys, first of all, Zeus is really smart, but they're one of the top floating peg projects. So one of the things we want to do is have them come in and help build this kind of price index. We're calling it the Frax price index with inaugural other project members. It's going to be the first type of thing that is going to be done, I think. Honestly, I can't think of any other project that has a long-term governance-based approach to replacing the CPI, right? Which is basically the consumer price index, which is is the only thing that the dollar basically tracks plus minus inflation, right? And the reason the dollar is so useful is because as best as we possibly can, at least for right now, it keeps our standard of living across time fairly similar, right? We're going to try to do that with the Frax project and creating a new unit of account. I'm going to release some new stuff where people can vote and actually get involved in that on chain. The second thing, which is more coming next week, right? And it's less of a grand vision, but more of a yield thing, is we're going to do some really, really close partnerships with Polygon. They really like Frax in terms of making it their stablecoin kind of choice. And there's going to be a lot more farms than the quick stuff. So that's Alpha League 2 to prepare for. And it'll be hopefully Matic rewards. And then we're going to try to have proposals to increase FXS, some FXS promotions there, but a lot of Matic rewards. So that's really exciting. So if you are a Polygon fan, which I am, there's going to be some awesome yields to be had in, other native tokens, so that Frax is actually, as a protocol, becoming more and more valuable in the sense that it helps you earn different tokens, right? Not just the share token. Let's see, what other lease do I want to say?
Well, you think on that, I just want to, I'm pretty excited about that there'll be the farm, like that Frax will be like one of the main stablecoins on Polygon. I mean, Polygon's exploded over the last few weeks, and we're seeing a ton of liquidity there. So that's exciting that that liquidity will be incentivized by Polygon themselves. And
just our view on it is like we want to work with them in lockstep to make Frax kind of available everywhere. So we're going to try to get Frax imminently on Aave's Polygon lending. Curve just deployed their Polygon implementation. I'm not sure how long it'll take for them to bring other pools, but when they, I think, will know that Frax is getting extra incentives, it's good for any project to allow, Frax or something that has extra incentives onto their platform. So I think it'll have like a really virtuous, explosive effect. So that's the main thing in the next few days. I'm super excited. It'll be a new place for people to do low gas farming, high compounding, and I'm a huge fan. There's other stuff in other chains. The other thing that I don't think we'll have time to really talk about the tech, but we actually recently came up with a really novel and interesting way for Frax to build native AMOs and minting contracts on L2s and other chains, so including Polygon. And it does not require any extra bridging of anything other than just the bridge that people use to bring Frax and Frax shares over. So we're actually going to use that infrastructure just to communicate the collateral ratio and system variables to that chain, to each individual chain. And then you'll fully be able to, in the future, mint Frax on those chains or redeem it. So that might take a little bit longer to just deploy for audits and stuff, but really excited about that. So for Frax as like a protocol, it's always anchored on Ethereum L1, but soon we'll have native minting on all of these other places without compromising the security, because the collateral ratio will always come from L1. Critical system variables will come from L1, all throughout this way that we've actually developed. So I'll actually make a big post about that recently.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll include, I'll make sure your links to Frax and your Twitter and all of the Medium posts and relevant information is below. If anyone has any last minute questions, put them in the chat now. I just wanted to ask Sam the last question I prepared, not so much about Frax, but obviously the past couple of days have been pretty shocking as far as the market goes. Do you think the bull market still has legs? Do you think we're due for a bear market at some point? Anything you want to share there? Obviously, no pressure. We're not going to hold you to it.
Well, my favorite cash flow phrase recently is a bear market's just a bull market for stable coins, right?
Yep.
And you actually can see that in the fact that, you know, people forget to compare like the fact that, sure, Frax retracted by supply by like I think around 10 million, 10, 12 million of 100 like 30 something million, right? That's like about 9%, right? Or something like that. ETH and BTC went down compared to, like, they retracted, right, in market cap by like 30+%, right? So if you look at it from a relational perspective, not just like against the dollar and hard numbers itself, what a pullback means is it's actually the dollar pumping and market value, right? Whether people like it or not, right? So when you're asking, is there like a bear market or something, you're actually, what you're kind of asking is like, will stable coins gain more in market cap than like normal volatile crypto assets, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're in for like a slight period, give or take, of like dollar denominated coins, which are stable coins, growing faster in market cap than crypto assets. But I don't think we're in anywhere near like 2018 level stuff. I don't even think that's actually possible. You know, I think our bear market would be if BTC and ETH stayed in like around 2K or 30K range for like 3 months. That's what I think is the worst case that could actually happen. Like the 20, 30K BTC for 3 months is our version of a bear market if we actually are.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions, so I just want to thank you now so much for your time, Sam, and more importantly, thank you for innovating in this space. I really think you're pushing DeFi forward, and I appreciate it. All of your links are going to be below. As far as the DeFi Innovation channel, just a quick heads up, we're moving from Telegram to Discord now. The link to that is going to be below. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again, Sam, and I will see you all in the next video.
Thanks, everyone.